anyone there? Might be too early. We're not starting now anyway. We're gonna start in 5 minutes. See? I've set a timer. Here? Oh. Oh, hello, 10 viewers. Won't be long now. For those of you just here, let's listen to JIMI SHAWNDI. Hi. Are you guys ready? I've got my hand basket. Let's jump in. Ha! So, you guys want to go to hell with me? Okay. Well, it all starts in ancient Egypt, because that's probably the oldest thing that we know about, except for the Neanderthals who buried their dead. I don't know what they thought about where they were going, but hopefully it was a good place, because they gave them, well, they did give them weapons, so they may not have thought it was that great. So, we know a lot about the Egyptian underworld because of the thing called the Book of the Dead. Except there wasn't just one. There were several books of the dead. In fact, you could buy a Book of the Dead yourself, for yourself, that was tailored for you. Kind of like your own sort of fan fiction. But it was real for you, because you're going to die and you're going to do all that stuff. And it was a book of spells that would protect you from all the bad things that everyone went through when they died, except for criminals who just never got a chance to be a soul really at all. They just died. So, there was a scribe by the name of Annie. I know. Little orphan Annie, I guess. I don't think he was an orphan, really. But, let's take a look at a picture of Annie's scroll. There it is. This is the Book of the Dead, a little piece of his scroll. And you can see right there in the very middle. His heart on the left is being weighed with a feather, because that's fair, obviously. But that's why you had all the protection spells and everything that was inscribed in your Book of the Dead. And then you were wrapped and mummified with protective cloth, and you were put in a coffin with protective spells, and you had a heart amulet that was in the shape of a scarab that protected you from stuff, because everything is against you pretty much in the underworld and wants to eat you. So you gotta take care of yourself. So originally written for pharaohs, but eventually they figured, well, why can't we go to heaven, which is also in the underworld, mind you, because everything started out in the underworld when you die. That's why you got buried. You got sent downstairs. But heaven's down there too, so, you know, there's that. And the ib, which is your heart, could get eaten if you don't do the right things. So you kind of want to take care of yourself. And if you were kind of a bastard, then you had extra spells. You had to probably... See, Egypt was really capitalist, so if they were really pandering to bastards, saying, hey, you need a Book of the Dead, and they're like, yeah, I do need a Book of the Dead. I've been horrible. I need all the spells. How much will that be? Oh, that'll just be everything. Just pay me everything you've got. Great. Fantastic. So, yeah, a lot of money to be had if you were a magician. They were very rich people. And their ka, sounds like karate, ka. Their ka was their spirit, and it was physical too, weirdly enough. Like when you physically died, your physical spirit came out of you, and you went physically into the underworld, and you could physically get bitten by snakes and all kinds of other things. Also, a very large snake who swallows the sun could swallow your soul while you're down there too. So be careful. So mummification was really important in their hell, or yeah, the do-what was what they called it. So do-wah-diddy-diddy-dum, diddy-do. They made their way down into the hell after they died. Magic words on the tomb magically protected them. And these actual drawings of these people were actually there to magically protect them too. Because you see, it showed most of their form And that helped their spirit keep its physical form. If you deviated from drawing it this way in any way, you could probably harm the physical spirit, like some kind of voodoo doodle thing. So be careful. And then the 12 chambers lined with spears, guarded by snakes who breathed venom and fire. So that's fun. And they had to say the names of the guardians and to pass through. And written on your Book of the Dead that was buried with you, in case you were ADHD and you're not really good with names and you forget, you need to have that written down so you can say their names and not, you know, just get eaten or stabbed or speared or flattened or, well, other horrible things. So they were buried with a map, which strangely enough looked like Egypt, but with other, you know, supernatural landmarks painted on it, like turquoise trees and lakes of fire, which makes me think maybe the magicians were just dropping acid and just drawing what they saw on there. Well, with some turquoise trees over there. I don't know. But some kings were actually not afraid to die. In fact, they were kind of so egotistical, they threatened the gods of the underworld on their deathbed. They're like, you watch out, because I'm coming. He who, in quotes, who feeds on gods is going to cross over into your domain, essentially. So be careful, because I'm going to eat you if I see you down there. You imagine being like that when you die. I'd love to have that kind of confidence. So, there were, after you crawl your way through these 12 chambers with spears and snakes and other horrible alligator monsters that would eat you and pull your heart out and chew it and stab it and probably kill you slowly and eat you just so they can eat you again. After you did all that, then you get to go get judged. Yay, because everyone likes that, obviously. And everyone had to go through this when they died. What a great thing to look forward to. 42 assessor gods. They would be there to listen, because they all represented the 42 principles of Ma'at. You may have heard of the 10 Commandments. Well, Egypt had 42 of them. And they were things that you probably do every day. Not all of them. I mean, for instance, you'd have to declare to the gods, these 42 judges standing in front of you. Also, by the way, Anubis or Osiris is there looking at you with that judging look, you know. And he said, and you have to say to him, like, I have not committed robbery with violence. The next line is, I have not stolen. So then, like, you know, it's worse. Like, I didn't rob anybody with violence. And then you have to say, I didn't rob anybody either, because that's important. I have not slain men or women. Now, maybe you haven't done those things. I have not stolen food. What if you are starving? You probably stolen some food. I don't know. You may not have done these things. You may be safe from some of these. But what about I have not told lies, or I have not cursed? How many of you are still going to underworld Egyptian heaven without some serious magic to back you up? I have not made anyone cry. Not sure. I think I have. Pretty sure I have. Yeah. I am not deceitful. I have not stolen anyone's land. Well, there's some things. I have not been an eavesdropper. You could do that accidentally. You could be walking by and you overhear somebody and you're like, holy crap, I'm going to die now and be eaten. Oh, yeah, that's right. You get eaten by Amit, who's a really fantastic guy. He's waiting over here in the picture. You can see him on the right-hand side. Oh, maybe. No, he's behind Thoth there on the right. You see there's a chain there, but for some reason the picture's cut off, at least on my end. But maybe you see the little alligator hippo lion, because that makes sense. all these things that eat. So this demon is made up of all the eating animals of the world. The lion, hippo, crocodile thing. And he's there waiting to eat you. Because if you did fail all the 42 things, then you're going to get devoured. Yay. But you got that magic, and you got that scarab right there with the beetle with on your heart, so it's going to not... And I think maybe all of these magic spells were a way so that you didn't feel guilty about what you did. I don't think kings had to worry about that. They might have been sociopathic, I think, with the ego that they had. Yeah, probably. But the scribe, I think, really had guilt, and he had to, like, have a lot of magic to get rid of that guilt. Because they probably, you know, psychiatry hadn't come very far back then. And so you got to get rid of your guilt, and that way your heart's not heavier than a feather, and then you get to go to the fields of rushes. That's right, that's heaven. Also, in the underworld, it was called the fields of Aru, which apparently are rushes. They're like wheat things that you cultivate. And that sounds like a lot of work, but it's peaceful. You go there and you know what you got to do. You cultivate, and yeah, that's right. You also get all of your favorite things. So, like, you know, your Nintendos and your PS4's still there, and you can watch TV, and all the great fights are on every day. And your favorite pet, there. All your favorite pets, all the ones in your little pet cemetery in the backyard, they're there, waiting for you. All of the loved ones that didn't get eaten are there with you, and you cultivate wheat, I guess. So, not a terrible afterlife, really. Yay! Mesopotamia. That was around 2300 BCE. And it's kind of boring. No, literally. Like, hell there is just... It's dark and it's boring. And that's it. It's not really a place of torment. It's just like, if you're not a great person, you're just boring. You just go to the boring place. It's not really a bad place. It's just, it's dark. It's foggy. It's like a city with 7 gates, and Ishtar had to go down there, actually, and she had to take off a piece of clothing at each gate. So it's kind of like strip poker, but with gates, and eventually she was naked and powerless, and they said, no, you can't leave, sorry. And she's like, you're gonna tell me what to do. And she's like, I'm gonna leave. And then the demons kept chasing her, like, you can't leave, because, like, this is a no-leave place. And she's like, but watch me. And they were like, well, okay, but you gotta have somebody back here in your place, or it ain't gonna work. And she's like, well, I don't know anybody. And we're like, well, how about your servant? And she's like, no, the servant's been, like, weeping over me. Ooh! That reminds me to do things. Oh, yeah! Let's check the comments. I'll get back to the story. So you all listen and wait wherever you are. Hi. All right. Hello. Hello, my friend. Anyone else is framing? Oh no! Am I jumping all over the place? Miguel, we're going to get to Greek mythology. That's right. That's a fun place. And actually, the Greeks took a lot from the Egyptians anyway. Is it streaming well for everyone else? I hope so. Let me know if it's not. Some of you say it won't play for you, but that's probably because we're using the same internet. Anyways. Alright. I think this is everybody on my feed that I see. Last person I see is Miguel, and hello Miguel. You love Greek mythology too. Alright. Let's get back to it. Wanted to show you some drawings. Look! It's a heart being weighed with a feather, and there's how you draw people. That's Stick Annie right there. And his heart's getting weighed. And there's Amit, ready to eat the heart. Oh no. Ooh. Boop. Come on. Hello? No. Not switching. Hi again. Back to the show. So, she was naked. That's a good place to pick up on, I think. And she had to get somebody to take her place in hell. Or at least the underworld, because it's everyone goes down there. Everywhere. Yeah, if you're in Mesopotamia, or if you're in Egypt, in Greece, Norse, all of these, mostly it's downstairs. Even the heaven. Even heaven. It's like, I can't wait to go to heaven. Woo! Somebody down there is looking after me. Actually, the gods were usually still upstairs, but, you know. Anyway. So, she got back, and the demons were, like, still chasing her, saying, you gotta have somebody. And she saw she saw Dumuzi, her husband, sitting on a throne, spending her money, and using it to have slave girls entertain him. And she was like, that guy's going to take my place right there. But because he's kind of important, he's still like a god of, like, you know, of corn, of fertilization. He's a fertility god, and she's like a storm goddess and of beauty and love and war, because why not? Same thing. And they get together and they make, well, babies, but they also make crops. Crops grow, and we get to eat. They make food. Their food's important. So in every mythology, you usually have some kind of storm and fertility gods getting together and making food. Yeah, that's what they do. They made food. And since he has to make food, he has to come back every half year. So he only spends half the year down there in hell. And then he gets reborn. So he's the dying god. This happens in a lot. And I've made a businessy spreadsheet. Let's take a look at it. There it is. And in the businessy spreadsheet, I pointed out the dying gods. Osiris dies, and he comes back to life. You know, they have to put him back together, and certain parts of him are used sometimes with it attached and with it not attached, and they created the Horus out of that. But that's another story. Ishtar, she died, and Dumuzi, or Dumuzid, he comes back, and that's kind of like how springtime happens. Everything dies in the winter, and then here come the crops, and then we get to eat, because we can't eat without Dumuzi, or Ishtar, or Osiris, or without Persephone, you know, because Demeter's mom gets sad when she's gone, so she's like, screw that, I'm not making crops. But then Persephone comes back and she's happy again, so we get to have crops and we get to eat. And Adonis, yeah, he also died. That's another story. So, scrolling along, another guy that died. Yeah, Jesus, he died. And he comes back. Guess when he comes? Guess when we celebrate his return? In the spring. That's right. Just like the others. Odin died. That's right. He killed himself, hung himself on a tree, and his eyes popped out. That's why he's only got the one eye. But that's why we have the runic alphabet, too. With Hagalaz. There's Hagalaz. And so, a lot of gods had to go to hell. Yeah. And then they come back. So it's okay. It's just the circle of life. You don't see that in The Lion King, but yeah. You get nailed to a wall some places. And then you gotta have like, hey, somebody's gotta take my place on getting nailed to the wall down here in hell. And then they switch out. And that's why we have food only in the spring. And then we have to save it over the winter so we can eat and not die. Not dying is good. Let's see. Mine's doing weird framey things, stopping and starting. Oh no! Well, hopefully this will record properly. If not, I can do it again. I'll find out. I'll be right back. Hello again. Alright, now we're back, and it's time for Hinduism. Hinduism has Naraka, and Naraka judges you. Oftentimes, actually, it's called the abode of darkness in Sanskrit. And if judged bad, whatever that is, the Yamutas sorry, the Yamadutas might tie you up, and you'd be beaten or eaten repeatedly, and then so they could eat you and beat you again by a variety of creatures. Yay! And you could have your eyes plucked out. Be used as target practice for archers. Have to drink molten iron. Or maybe they make you drink mucus or urine or saliva. But some people might be into that, so they probably, depending on what you're into and not into, you know. A place where a child, that's pretty much it for Hinduism. They had a, you know, little bit of stuff there, and very similar into a lot of borrowed things from other places too. Judaism actually is Gehenna. Yeah, it's not really hell. It's the Valley of Hinnam's Son. A real place, yeah, where executed criminals and garbage were dumped. Let's just throw all that together, you know, like you do. Well, I mean, if you've looked at the landfills today, you probably see a little bit of the same thing kind of going on. But fires were kept burning to keep the stench down. So it was a literal trash fire. And later became to be more like purgatory, like a waiting room that you have to be purified in. It's not the best waiting room. You know, you might have some sort of fiery things going on. I don't know. But you're sitting there and you're waiting for maybe at most 12 months, you know. But there were some notable exceptions. Like Hitler, for Judaism, is probably still in the waiting room. I'm going to guess. And moving right along, after Judaism from 2000 BCE, we get to Greek, around the 800s BCE. And the ruler of Hades is, guess. That's right, it's Hades. Because sometimes it's named after, you know, yourself. And you're like, what am I going to call this place that I live in and I control? I'm going to call, like if I ruled hell, why not call it Frenxotic? I don't know. It might be. It sounds like a fun place. Frenxotic. We're going to Frenxotic, everybody, in a handbasket. And in Hades, you started out, there's a three-headed dragon dog, like, you know, they do, you know, because why not? If you've got a three-headed dragon dog, you stick that out front. That's the best guard dog. It's got 3 heads, and it's part dragon with a tail that's made of razors. So, right there, you go into hell. Doesn't let you in unless you're Hercules and you're strong enough to, like, just carry him out for a minute. Like, look, here's the beast. I'm gonna go put him back now. True story, that happened. Yeah. And then this guy, this ferryman named Karin, skinny looking dude, comes up, kind of pale, and says, give me some money, because obviously, ooh, let's look at this, look more, we'll get back to Karin. Or is it Charon? It's C-H-A-R-O-N. There's a moon of Pluto named after him. True story. Till I saw this, I didn't realize how much I've missed this. Aww, thank you. And so back to Karin, or Sharon, or Sharon, or is it Karen? Maybe he's the original Karen. Either way, he doesn't speak to managers. He just asks for some money, and usually it's something you were buried with. But you get to go across, and you probably got the money for dying. Just dying spiritually, the coins appeared. There is the old legend that they put the coins on the eyes so that they could have something, and there's not really any evidence to really, you know, go with that. Maybe. But for the most part, you just got to go on the ferry boat with Karin, and he sent you. He would ferry you across the river Styx, and which is, you know, a good band. And you'd go through the river Styx, and there are some other rivers named after different primordial entities. Probably because the entity itself decided, I'm going to be this river now. Erebus, darkness itself, I'm a river. Why not? Because, you know, nothing else better to do. Darkness happens now just when the sun goes down. I did my part. What do? I'm going to be a river. Because why not? Sounds like a good life right there, being a dark river. Anyway, there's another river called Lethe, and it's right all around the plains of Asphodel, which is a foggy place. And it's kind of like the hell that's in Mesopotamia. It's just dark. It's dark and boring. And you drink from the river of Lethe, which is the river of forgetfulness. So, not really much change here if I were to go down there and drink. But, you don't remember anything. You don't remember anything. You forget everything. And if you ever played God of War 3, when you first get thrown down into Hades at the beginning, you land in the river of Lethe, and that's probably why your powers are taken away, because you can't remember how to use them. It's like all these things come up, and then you lose your powers, and you're just back to being a mortal man again. But he's Kratos, so he's like, that ain't gonna stop me. Remember, I'm gonna kill Zeus anyway, and that's what he does. Spoiler alert. But that's not the actual Greek myths. Anyway, so Asphodel, just kind of like goldfish, you bump into each other and you're like, hey, you look familiar. And then you forget all about him because you drank from you had to drink something, because you got to drink water, and there's the water, and it makes you forget, so you don't remember anything. You sort of wander around. It's probably pretty stressless because you don't remember anything. You're just like, pretty good life, I think. You know, it's not really good, it's not bad. I wonder if this water's any good. I think I'll take another sip. Did I take a sip? I don't remember. I think I'll take another sip. Anyway, and they can't remember whether they peed or not, but oh well. But it's a nice little place, not terrible. Then there is the bad place, and that's Tartarus. And that's where the bad boys go when they die. And that's got lakes of fire and guards that are giants with 100 hands, the hecatonkers. And yeah, they had 100 hands. So, you know, stop. They would stop you with all their hands. And down there is also Prometheus. And also down there, Prometheus, by the way, is getting his liver eaten out every day, only for it to grow back, and then tomorrow get his liver eaten out by some kind of bird, usually a vulture, or some kind of thing. Now let's see. And then there's Sisyphus. There's the stick Sisyphus, who's forced to push a rock up a hill that will never get over the hill, and then it rolls back down. A Sisyphean task. And then there is the symbol for Tartarus, drawn very crudely. By me. But that's alright. And there are these judges before you get to Tartarus. And by the way, heaven is also down there. It's neighboring by. And this is probably so that you can open your windows and point and laugh at everybody in Tartarus. And so you get the judges, and the judges are Rhadamanthys, King Aeacus, and King Minos. That's right. King Minos. The guy who had some relations with his cow and had a baby called the Minotaur. And that's an interesting story. Yeah, that's right. And if you would like to hear that story, Oh, I could tell that story next time. I'm not finished this time, by the way. I'm all few more things left to do, because we actually haven't gotten to hell yet. The 1L hell. That's right. We're going to get there in a minute. So, if you like some of these... If you like some of these stories, then I could do another one on some of the horrors of mythology, of which there are many. Oh, you have no idea how bad some of this stuff happens. Some of the real things that have actually happened to stop some of the bad things that they thought would happen in... Or maybe it's true. I don't know. Maybe there's bad snakes that are wanting to swallow the sun. I have no idea. But I have so many stories. And if you'd like that, just let me know in the comments. If you would like to hear more horror stories about mythology and folklore. Plus, by the way, I could do some stuff on vampires and werewolves too. Alright, sorry. Back to the show. So... these guys would judge you, and if you were judged to be good, then you would go to the fields of rushes. And this is where, like, you know, Hercules would go. And if you did great things, you know, if you didn't just sit around and like, I think I'm just gonna eat and watch TV, you know, maybe try to do good things. If you tried to do good things, you know, you probably went to like kind of like the fields of rushes, but it's actually not. They borrowed that from Egypt, and they called it the Elysium Fields. The same thing, really. You may have heard the movie Elysium. It was a reference to the Greek heaven, which is down there. And then there's Buddhism, which has several hells. Buddhism has these planes of existence, and at the very bottom is hell. That's where the demons are. If you are a really, really awful person, you go here, and you depending on your karma level, which is like a gauge on a video game, your karma level gets too filled up with bad, then you go down here. But if you're not quite that bad, you still suffer a lot because you're what's called a hungry ghost. And a hungry ghost is just a ghost that has all the physical urges. See, there's the hungry ghost I drew. You see it? Look at him. He's so hungry. Nom nom nom. And so you walk around and you can't eat, you can't drink, you can't, you know, take care of things. And you have these urges and you can't do anything about them. You're hungry all the time. And so that's a bad place to be. Yeah. And so if you're a little better at being a hungry ghost and your karma level gets burned out, then you might come up and you'd be incarnated as some kind of animal. And there's a chain of animals. Like you'd start out like with a cockroach, and if you were a really good cockroach, you might jump up to like a frog, or you know, you would go up to the levels, and then you get to be a human in the lowest slave labor area possible. And then if you were a good slave, you got up to merchant class and so forth, like you do. And then if you were like Buddha, he climbed his way up, and he was born as a prince. That's right. And he didn't know what suffering was. He's like, you know. And then he looked over the wall, and he saw these people going by that were merchants, and he's like, hey, climbed over the wall and said, hey, what's going on? Why are you hungry? I don't understand. Why don't you just eat something? Why don't you just stop being poor? He had privilege. I wouldn't say it was white privilege, but he had privilege. And he just didn't know. And then he found out, like, wow, suffering's a thing. People don't have food. I just thought that everybody had food. And then he realized, I need to figure out what suffering is. So he decides, I'm going to starve myself for 40 days. Because that's a good number. Because why not? Actually, was it 40? It was a number of days. Curious. And while he meditated under the tree, by the way, this nightmare demon called Mara, which is where we get the word nightmare. Mar, it's in there. And he sent all these hallucinations and demons to distract him and to sing the Baby Shark song in his head over and over again. And he's just like, I'm just going to be chill. I'm not going to eat. And I'm just going to be all right with myself. And then he was. That's right. He got up and was glowing with power and enlightenment. And someone said, hey, that guy's important. He's glowing. Either that or he came from a nuclear power plant. But those don't exist yet. So maybe he's a god. Why don't you go ask him if he's a god? And then they did. They went up and they said, are you a god? And he said, no. And then they said, are you a man? And he thought about it. No. Well, then what are you? And he said, I am awake. Brilliant answer right there. That's the way to go. And then he said, don't worship me. And then Hinduism decided they were going to make him one of their gods, completely defeating the purpose of what he was trying to do in the first place. But they were, they were sure trying. They thought they were doing a good thing there, But those things happen. Then we get to Christianity. Hell. 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 And it robs a lot from Greece. Because really, the Bible says nothing about hell. Hell actually originated from the Norse hell with one L. And Christians decided to use it to talk about their bad place, which is Gehenna, or Sheol even. It's a bad place. It's a big trash fire. And Dante decided, because they often decided that it was a fiery place and borrowed a lot from Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology with all the snakes and horrible venom and fire and brimstone and repeated torture, just whatever you could think of that's just bizarre torture forever. And they were really creative about torture in this time. But and so Dante, decided, I'm going to write this fan fiction about myself going through hell to get to heaven, because that's actually what happened to a lot of savior characters in mythology anyway. They went to hell. Ishtar went to hell. Gilgamesh went to hell, came back like you do, and then they had to go to heaven. Yeah, it was a cycle. You usually had to go through hell to get to heaven, kind of like in Greece. Or in everyone who died in Egypt. You had to go through all this horrible snake-bitey stuff to get to heaven. And then So, the levels of hell. And first, I would really like to show you is a guy by the name of Hieronymus Bosch. That's a little off the topic for a minute, but it's actually still a depiction of hell that I think you should see. Hieronymus Bosch was kind of like Leonardo da Vinci and Salvador Dali, through some sort of timey-wimey wibbly-wobbliness, got together and partied with some acid and painted pictures together. And this is what they would have looked like. If it'll just go there. Yep, just go. There we go. This is one of the weird little pictures of hell. I don't know what that guy did to become a cave, but yeah. And a lot of other weird things going on. I actually invite you guys to look up Hieronymus Bosch. Just put in B-O-S-C-H, but you're going to have to put paintings in there too, because there's a show called Bosch. named after some books and stuff. So, yeah. Hieronymus Bosch did some weird stuff about hell, and it gets weirder than this. So much weirder than this. And it's beautiful. And there were some people that actually drew a map of hell, of Dante's Inferno hell, the Divine Comedy, because hell is just so funny. Comedy didn't mean the same thing back then as it does today, though. But let's take a look at that image. And here it is. There's a depiction of hell. Up there at the top is limbo, very much like Asphodel or, Mesopotamian hell. It's just boring, you're just foggy, just wandering around, It's not really hell, it's just not heaven, Then there are those who were condemned by lust. That's the next level there, and you should actually watch or play the video game Dante's Inferno, because you get to play every one of these levels. And Cleopatra's there is like the boss of lust, and it's weird, and yeah, they took a little bit from Hieronymus Bosch. Oh, I'll look at the comments now. Best answer ever. Yes, it was. Aw, thanks for all the love, guys. See lots of hearts floating up. Okay, back to hell. Then, after lust, you get gluttony. And that's a really fun stage, because there are these giant things that are bloated and have just no head, it's just a mouth. And their arms, they have no hands, they just mouths. And you have to kill these things. It's beautiful. And then greed, and then anger, and then heresy, and then violence. So those that were restrained just stayed up there in anger. But if you actually did something and were a violent person, then you went down to violence. And then the fraudulent people, yeah, those would be your politicians probably. Oh, and also treachery, that would be your politicians. And that's where Satan is. Now, the last 9th level of hell isn't fiery at all. In fact, it's very frozen. Not the kind of place you want to build a snowman, though. It's a really frozen, icy void of no love. It's ice all the time. And you're just sort of stuck there, frozen. But since you're already dead, you don't die and it doesn't end. You're just stuck there with those thousands of needles poking all your skin of the cold that's frozen ice all the time. Fun. And that's where Satan apparently is. Now, the Mayan culture did have heaven up there. And not only one heaven, they had 13 heavens up there. But down there were 9 underworlds called Xibalba. Spelled with an X. Xibalba. Xibalba. Or Xibalba even, sometimes. And the rulers down there are 1 death and 7 death. These sound like metal people, right? It's so metal. 1 death and 7 death. That's like, yeah. It's like a metal band right there. You need Slash, the guitarist, to be backing them up. That'd be awesome. Although some don't really consider him metal. It's a genre thing. Depends on depends on how you define metal. But anyway, in this, you have to cross a river of scorpions. Fun. I don't think you get a boat. Fun times. And after that is the river of blood, probably because of the previous river of scorpions, and the river of pus, probably because you got infected in the river of blood. Makes sense. And then there's a river of pus from all the people who've crossed those two Yeah, that's right. Previous rivers. And then you have Islam. In Islam, they call it Jahannam. And there are 7 gates of hell. But it's pretty much a repeat. It's a description of Christian hell and it's the same kind of hell you're used to from all the way back from the ancient Egypt. It's fiery, horrible, with probably snakes and all these other horrible monsters. And you get tortured. Don't be bad. And lastly, around 793 AD, the Norse came around doing stuff and things, and everybody goes to hell. That's right. There are people who now actually worship in the Norse pantheon today, and there are memes that say, yes, I'm going to hell, and I'm okay with that. But they spell it with one L because it's Helheim. Hell, again, named after the person who rules the place, Hela, which, contrary to the Avengers movies, is not their sister. It's actually Loki's kid. Loki sires all of the most horrible things. He sires giant, weird snakes called Jormungandr. He was the mother, he was the mother of Sleipnir, which is an interesting story I might tell you in another show. And he also sired hell. That's right. He gave birth to hell. Loki did that. Oops. Most of the things Loki did, he was a horrible person. But a lot of the stuff he did was just either as a joke. Early on, it was usually a joke. Later on, I think he just did it to be horrible. I think because they didn't like his jokes. And he was just an evil bastard. Yeah, he was far worse, actually, than in the Avengers movie. You think that guy's bad. Loki from myth is awful. And hell, there's also a place called Niflheim, which could be, and some people think, is actually just a poetic euphemism, it's another word for hell. Which can be an icy place, it can be a foggy place. Niflheim is usually considered the foggy place, which oftentimes is a bit like the plains of Asphodel, or the Mesopotamian hell. It's just dark, and it's boring, and people are wandering around, they're lost. If you've ever played Skyrim, and you're trying to get to the hall, right? It's a lot like this. They took a lot from Norse myth, and it's kind of a cold place. It's cold and foggy, and then you have these souls wandering around like, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. And you're like, just snap yourself together, man. And you go take care of business. And then you get to this hall. And this hall is actually kind of like hell. It's actually a good place. Because if you don't... And here's the thing. Here's the big message of all of today. If you don't want to be in hell, guys, just let go of your guilt. Let go of your hate. Let go of your anxiety. And you're not in hell anymore. You're not stuck. You're not frozen. And you can just go eat, drink, and be merry in the hall with everyone that you love. In heaven. That's in hell. That's actually hell. Yeah. Oh, I've been through hell. Could be a good place if you just let go of your guilt and go in the hall, warm up, drink some mead, or whatever, your poison is. Eat some food. Have a blast. Maybe play with your pets that died. Watch some great stuff on television, because it's going to be there, because it's your favorite things are going to be there, remember? Kind of like in the Fields of Rushes. It's all the kind of same place, yeah. Except you don't have to cultivate wheat here for whatever reason. You just get to eat and drink. It's kind of like what they think Valhalla, you picture Valhalla where everybody's like singing and regaling the great times of battle they've had and drinking and eating and having a great time. That's hell, actually, too. Yeah, there's a place in hell. There's a special place in hell for all of us. and we could be there and having a great time. Let's check some comments before I go. Tacos. Heavenly or hellish with one L. Tacos. Nippleheim. Giggity. I'm with you, Slade. Tacos. Scorpion tacos for those, yeah, that are going to Zabalba or the bad place. Illinois in winter is hell. It could be, because hell is bad too. If you're outside in the snow. Yeah, H-E-L. It's cold. It's colder than hell out here. So if you've heard somebody say it's colder than hell out here, and you're thinking, well, that's stupid because hell's fiery. Of course, everything's colder than hell. No, not if you're thinking about the Norse hell. The more you know. Whoosh. Ding. So, if you would like for me to do more stories of mythology stories, like this post that I'm putting down now. Boop. Post. And I'll do some more mythology stories if you like, if it gets loaded up. If not, I don't know. We'll see. If I come up with something else that you might like to see. But that's all for me today, folks. I want to thank you guys for being here and hanging out with Frenxotic today. And, you know, just making a trip in the basket with me to hell. Bye, guys. Thanks for coming.